Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering MELTDOWN, college DEI programs now banned in multiple states. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from AL.com, Alabama Governor Kate Ivey signs DEI bill into law. What the divisive concepts ban will do. Also from AL.com. Alabama colleges, students weigh options after Governor Kate Ivey signs DEI bill into law. And from The Guardian, legal discrimination, dismay as Kentucky poised to ban DEI in colleges. And also from The Guardian, Alabama bans DEI in schools and says bathrooms must be designated by biological sex. From AL.com, Alabama Governor Kate Ivey signs DEI bill into law, what the divisive concepts ban will do. A new Alabama law banning diversity, equity, and inclusion offices and programming and training in public colleges and other state agencies will go into effect this fall. Governor Kate Ivey signed SB 129, known as the Divisive Concepts Bill, into law on Wednesday. The law will become effective October 1st, 2024. Quote, "My administration has and will continue to value Alabama's rich diversity. However, I refuse to allow a few bad actors on college campuses or wherever else for that matter, to go under the acronym of DEI, using taxpayer funds to push their liberal political movement counter to what the majority of Alabamians believe." Ivey said this in a statement on Wednesday. Quote, "We have already taken action to prevent this in our K-12 classrooms, and I am pleased to sign SB 129 to protect our college campuses. Supporting academic freedom, embracing diversity of cultures and backgrounds, and treating people fairly are all key components of what we believe in Alabama, and I am more than confident that we will continue." Alabama joins Florida and Texas in enacting the wide-ranging legislation which asks for sweeping changes or cancellations to state agencies and public colleges that currently fund DEI offices and programming. It is not yet clear whether the law will force some state colleges, which support a combined $16 million in diversity spending, to lay off staff. Sometimes they just move the employees around, but they usually do make a fundamental change in what they do and don't do. Removing the funding is how you kill these programs. The programs don't exist because it's not like someone else who's a billionaire who believes in all of this diversity stuff is going to come in and write a check for a couple of $1 million to keep the programs going. That happened in Florida, happened in Texas. It happens everywhere these programs get defunded by the state when it's not free for the college to exploit the state with these programs anymore. They just don't continue. The law bans any program that advocates for a divisive concept. It also would prohibit higher education institutions from allowing individuals to use a restroom that is different from their sex as assigned at birth. Passage of the Republican-backed legislation comes after lengthy debate in the House and Senate, multiple student protests, and criticism from civil rights advocates and educators. Ban supporters said the legislation would prevent indoctrination and far-left ideology in classrooms, and gave some examples of where they believed white students were made to feel uncomfortable on college campuses. Opponents of the ban credited DEI programs for providing access and financial support, improving their campus experience, and in some cases saving their lives. Others also warned that a ban would deter businesses and athletes from coming to the state. You can't have special programs focused on only certain races and ask the state to pay for that. It's completely crazy. Quote, "This unjust and inhumane bill ignores the will of the people and threatens years of progress toward racial and social justice and LGBT rights for generations to come," said Jerome Dees, Alabama Policy Director for the SPLC Action Fund. "Students and workers value diversity, equity, and inclusion in their schools and workplaces because it makes all of us more safe." Again, SPLC Action Fund. Nobody goes out of their way to raise money to replace these missing funds. I don't want to give them any ideas. I don't think colleges should have these programs. But like literally zero, not one wealthy person or even one person going out there with a GoFundMe trying to raise money to replace the missing monies pulled away from the state. Nobody does that. In a message to students and faculty Tuesday evening, University of Alabama System Chancellor Finis St. John IV and presidents of the system's 3 campuses said leadership and legal counsel are working to determine what actions the colleges will need to take to ensure their programs are in compliance with the law. They're just going to have to fire everybody, like they did in Florida. Quote, "It is important to note that SB 129 defines divisive concepts and DEI programs in specific terms. and it offers several exceptions for accreditation requirements, academic freedom, medical and mental health care, research, recruiting, and outreach, and a host of other areas. But we recognize differences and strengthen our campuses and help us successfully prepare students to live and work in a global society. We remain committed to recruiting and retaining outstanding students, faculty, and staff from all backgrounds, providing open and equal access to resources and opportunities, and equipping all campus community members for success at our universities and beyond. The law lists 8 so-called divisive concepts, with most covering topics related to race, ethnicity, sex, religion, and national origin. The bill's sponsor, Senator Will Barfoot, that's this guy, said nothing in the legislation prevents the accurate teaching of history. Oh, they don't like that. Educators who knowingly compel students to believe certain banned ideas, however, could be terminated or disciplined at the discretion of college and school board leaders. That's about the tightest explanation of stopping people from woke indoctrination that I've ever seen. Educators who knowingly compel students to believe certain banned ideas, that's pretty extreme. And that's going to put a lot of teachers on notice that, hey, you better stop messing around or you're going to find out. After debate on the Senate floor last month, the law will no longer prohibit college staff from discussing whether slavery and racism are aligned with the founding principles of the United States. Democrats also added specific protections for women's sports, the State of Office of Minority Affairs, and changes to ensure sex was added to the list of protected classes in places where it was omitted. Recent changes, which were approved on Tuesday, more clearly define the role of a contract and protect those individuals from termination if they violate the law accidentally. Another amendment ensures that nothing in the law would infringe on First Amendment rights of students or employees. The law says it will not impede academic or medical research, federal reporting requirements, or support services. It also does not prohibit housing or organizations that are segregated by sex or affect certain circumstances related to accreditation. Students or staff may host a DEI program or event, it added, but must not use state money to fund it. Like we covered, they can have a DEI program. They're not really banning programs. They're banning the funding of these programs. So go get your own funding if you want to push your own agenda. That's what it's about. Stop robbing the state to push these programs. But that's not what they want to do. At AL.com, Alabama colleges and students weigh options after Governor Kay Ivey signs the DEI bill into law. They are upset. Alabama students and educators are still weighing the impacts of a new ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in public colleges. Governor Kay Ivey signed SB 129, known as the Divisive Concepts Bill, into law March 20th. The law becomes effective October 1st, 2024. Quote, Alabama lawmakers passed legislation that turns back the clock on progress in the past 70 years to support students, faculty, and staff from a diverse range of backgrounds. Paulette Granberry Russell, CEO of the National Association of Diversity Officers in Higher Education, said in a statement to AL.com. That's this lady. It is especially shameful that this legislation is being enacted in a state with a deep history of racial discrimination and forced integration of education. The wide-ranging legislation asks for sweeping changes or cancellations to state agencies and public colleges that currently fund DEI offices and programming. Auburn University and the University of Alabama's Tuscaloosa and Birmingham campuses support more than $3 million each in DEI budgets. Not no more they don't. The law bans any program that advocates for a divisive concept. It also would prohibit higher education institutions from allowing individuals to use a restroom that is different from their sex assigned at birth. There's a chilling effect. Civil rights groups, professional organizations, and educators say the law could have a negative impact on student well-being, employee retention and hiring, and even research and business opportunities. Quote, we're watching very carefully because there's going to be this short-term impact, but also a long-term impact, said Heidi Tsu, Associate Vice President for National Engagement at the American Council on Education. And certainly the concern is that this is a chilling effect on student opportunities. I do see this a lot, so you would think I would get used to it, but every time I read people talking about this, I get the impression, like, how crazy is this? Like, you want to discriminate against people based on their skin color or their gender or their sexual preferences, and you want the state to pay for it. It's got to be paid for by the government. Well, what's the point of that? It's wrong. Even if you paid for it privately, if it wasn't state or federal money, you shouldn't be doing that. They know they're not supposed to do that. They've been doing it. Once you start doing this, you start to feel entitled to do this. You start to feel like there's a reason to do it. There's no reason to do it. It was wrong. They should all be apologizing, and this should be illegal throughout the United States. Nationwide, similar bans have been proposed or enacted in at least 22 states, according to the Chronicle of Higher Education. But institutions have responded in varied ways. In Florida, one institution fired all its DEI staff, while another simply changed their titles. It's not clear yet whether Alabama's law will force some state colleges, which support a combined $16 million in diversity spending, to lay off staff. Yeah, maybe they'll work for free. According to the state's Legislative Services Agency, it's up to individual state agencies, local boards of education, and college administration to decide how to discipline employees who violate the law. There is no civil or criminal penalty for noncompliance, but the legislature can withhold funding from institutions that don't comply. Sue said it's important for local colleges to fully understand the law, including what it does and does not prohibit, and set clear guidelines on how they will move forward. Quote, the continued priority needs to be that students from any type of background and all walks of life are being welcomed into our campus community, she said, and that their needs get supported, their talents get supported and nurtured, and then they're positioned to succeed after they graduate to serve as the next generation of leaders. That is the thing that needs to continue to be the central focus. In an interview with AL.com, Bernard Similton of the Alabama NAACP called the legislation a devastating bill for equality in the state of Alabama. No, you mean a devastating bill for equity in the state of Alabama. The unequal delivery of services that are paid for by the state. That's what Bernard means, but he won't say that. A few years ago, the state NAACP started working with Auburn's DEI office after hearing concerns from minority faculty members about the tenure and promotion process, Similton said. He will be meeting with college officials in the next few days to discuss next steps, he said. He also said the chapter is looking into options for federal funding of DEI programming, either through grants from the U.S. Department of Education or Department of Justice. The NAACP recently urged athletes not to go to Florida colleges due to its DEI ban, which passed in 2022. Similton said his chapter is considering a similar message. The NCAA has not weighed in on whether the law will impact athletic teams, which are required to complete regular DEI reviews. Quote, I'm just afraid we're going to see a tremendous reversal, Similton said, referring to policies like affirmative action that have helped African Americans and other minority groups gain access to education and employment. The discrimination is starting to end, and it's starting to end everywhere because people have had it with this. Just heartbreak. In Montgomery this month, students and advocates pleaded with lawmakers to halt the bill. Now many are concerned how colleges will respond. Akeisha Anderson, Policy and Advocacy Director of Alabama Arise, said she benefited from DEI programming during her time at the University of Alabama. The new law, she said, won't enhance free speech. It will only take away spaces for students of color to feel safe and supported on campus. Yeah, the whole law had nothing to do, though, with enhancing free speech. It's about protecting people's rights from discrimination and stopping your cultural Marxism nonsense. So it has nothing to do with free speech right now. From her interactions with lawmakers, she said she's skeptical that colleges will be able to find workarounds to support employees and students who might be affected. Right, because when it comes to funding, that's what people care about, power and funding. And if you take away the funding, then they don't get free power, so they don't pursue it. In a committee meeting last month, Democrats proposed an amendment that would ensure DEI offices would only be prohibited if they promoted so-called divisive concepts, but Republicans struck it down. They're not going to trust these DEI offices. Anderson said she asked the bill's sponsors to bring the amendment to the House floor for a second vote, but was turned down. The fact that people like Ed Oliver, who carried the bill in the House, were against that amendment tells me that it's very intentional to make sure they are stopping out what they perceive to be something that is dangerous or leading to people being woke, she said. Yes, that's correct. It's good that she's caught on by now. Current college students say the law could not only take away affirming spaces on campus, but it could also damage career prospects and academic opportunities. Affirming spaces on campus are like when you have a certain color only, or certain gender only, or certain sexual preference only center paid for with state monies that exclude other people that aren't like them. Sean Atchison, president of the University of Alabama's Queer Student Association, said he was able to get a prestigious Boren Fellowship and Fulbright Scholarship because of his involvement with QSA and his research on queer communities abroad. So he researches queer communities abroad. He gets a free scholarship, an important scholarship. And now he's worried because, hey, people aren't going to get the opportunity to do research, whatever that might be, on queer communities abroad and get a scholarship for it. Well, yeah, I mean, at some point, that's not appropriate. But my initial gut reaction is just heartbreak, he said. The whole reason I've been involved in this from the beginning is because of these programs that helped me and they've made me the person I am. And realistically, all those opportunities are on the chopping block. All those opportunities are gone. You've got to have more like mainstream merit-based opportunities that everyone has equal access to. I don't think anyone else had an opportunity to do international research on straight communities abroad and then get a scholarship for that. So, I mean, it is a little bit unfair, and it's time to level the playing field. His organization, he said, is encouraging the university to enforce the ban in the least horrible way they can and find ways to continue to support student groups and resources for student success. Perhaps he could take his group and focus on finding resources for student success and not just basically putting it on the university to do it. Again, no one will raise funding. Everyone wants their hands in the government's pockets to push these DEI agendas. Perhaps they could go raise the money from even corporations. Corporations will write checks for things like this. Wealthy individuals might even write checks for things like this, but corporations will absolutely throw away money on projects like this, but they won't even go to the trouble of contacting those corporations. Well, when we say this is Governor Ivey's segregation today, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever, that's not an exaggeration, he said. That's literally the impact of this bill. It is an execution of George Wallace's vision in the 21st century. When I do a thumbnail titled Woke Colleges Panic, I'm telling you, there's panic out there. They're having a harder and harder time getting free state and federal monies to push their DEI agenda in colleges and in state institutions. They are very upset about this. They don't want to take the trouble of going to raising the money privately, even though there are corporations that would write checks for this. I guarantee you they would, especially because so much of the state and federal funding for these kinds of things is either being blocked or is being cut off completely. Hopefully they will just continue to complain and not actually seek out replacement monies, because funding this is terrible. There should not be this kind of inequality on college campuses or in state offices. Everyone should be treated equally. We should appreciate the greatness of what America really is and the opportunity that exists. Stop with the divisiveness and move on and appreciate what we have here in this country. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.